here. And then we would share the screen, just making sure I have the ability to share.
Okay, I set up the recording, so it should be good now.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm not 100% clear on the intro, but my name is Laurie Apple, and I'm coming to you live from Berlin. We're today going to spend an hour doing a prioritization session for how the release team can improve the release cycle happy path. And we have already done some work on this through the spreadsheet that we'll look at in a minute. And all of you have been so great in marking the items that you consider high priority for the release team. So thank you for your participation and your time. We are here to be excellent to each other, so we have a code of conduct, and so please we'll all be respectful and listen to each other and have a good experience. And Jeremy, if I missed anything, you can hopefully, yep, that's it.
You're good.
All right, so just to get us started, so this is the 4th session, and I've noticed that, well, the 2nd session had the same number of people, and in that session, we finished 10 minutes early. On yesterday's session, same number of people, and we got maybe 1/3 of the way through the list, and we will do a follow-up session. So that's a way to say that these sessions can vary depending on all of you and what you feel you need to discuss. So if we are going slowly, like we did yesterday, at the midway point, I will stop and give us the chance to take the temperature and say if we either want to continue going at that pace or if we want to actually think about having a follow-up session. Or there might be another option that one of you comes up with for getting through the body of the work. Yeah? All right. So is anybody here? I'm going to start sharing the spreadsheet. Oop, I cannot yet. Maybe I can now. No, I'm still disabled from screen sharing.
I probably have to give you permission for that.
Yeah, I think so.
I made you a co-host, so you should be able to now.
Cool, thank you. All right. So here we have our beautiful spreadsheets, and I've brought all of you into this section so that we can just see each other's information, and it makes things a little bit tidier and faster. So what I'll do is I'll go down the rows, and if there's a comment in the row, I'll call it out, and you can share your comment with the group. And if you don't want to share the comments, if you're just like, you know, you can pass, and we'll just move on to the next row. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions?
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. So the first item with a comment in it is about the CI Signal project board. And Hossam has a question or a comment.
Yep. Hello, everyone. This is my first meeting on such initiatives, and it is my first shadow exercise as well on the CI Signal. So I added the comment based on my understanding, and again, excuse any new terminologies for me or anything that is that I would be saying, but this is my first interaction. So I believe the item on that board is critical for us. We have some tests that are failing for a long time without any action. So I believe it is critical for any release moving forward that we are taking the items or the issues that we are listing on the CI Signal board, like a little bit of being critical for any release, because they are, in a sense, they are issues that are actually either a flaky test or failing test. That may be something like Windows tests being failing for long, without any proper fix for them. So this is an example that why those items are critical for us and why we should be really fixing them. Again, I would welcome any comment from your side. This is again, and this is my first shadow exercise. So I added the information based on my understanding.
Mm-hmm. And you also called out the next two items, so maybe you want to
Yes.
continue.
Yeah, the report as well is critical for us. As of now, we are giving the status casually in terms of if we have certain items that is blocking or certain items that is failing. However, I am more convinced that having a report that is part of the status added to the status report may be generated by some of the sample tools that being referred in here or even follow certain format can be something of a well-documented approach to at least give us the indicator around the release, around the tests as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then you are the next, you have a should for the next one. So
Yes.
this is also about CI signal.
Yeah. So I believe the sub-project are critical, and I will talk about my experience since I joined CI Signal. There are a lot of areas that we learned on the go that may have been streamlined if we have this as a process or as a tool or as a sub-project to enhance this. And the idea is, I believe the sub-project, that's why I added should, sub-project will require a little bit of longer commitment from the existing shadows and moving forward until we have this project graduated and being used for the subsequent release cycles. That's the only challenge that I see. I believe in the value, but the time and the effort that will need to be added to those sub-projects may be a little bit overwhelming for the team members and required a little bit of longer commitment from the team. So if we started something, we have to finish it, and that's the whole purpose of it. That's why I added should, but I believe in having those sub-projects. We started doing a little bit of improvement. We may not call them as a sub-project, but some sort of improvement from a CI shadow, given that we are a diverse and a lot of people are new. So become adding a little bit of improvement, thinking about some ideas and some project to be done. However, the time and the effort may be the only limitations that we have so far.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank
That's
you.
it from my side.
All right. We also have Kendall has marked this item, the last one.
Yeah.
For the CI signal sub-project.
Yeah, I went and read I just read the information about it and then went and looked at some of the stuff in the actual GitHub page. And I just thought, I think anytime that there's a way that you can streamline a process that's really people oriented, I don't think we should have to by any means. I guess especially I also have a shadows perspective, so anything that I feel like is going to enable, I guess, continuity between things that you're learning from one release to another is something that should be done. And so I think that was kind of why I felt like that was definitely a high priority item, just based on either my experience and or the like feasibility of just making sure that you're not relearning things that that maybe could be shared. So that was on that.
So would you call that a must or should?
I don't know, just because relative, just to be frank, there's a lot about the project that I still don't know. So I think I don't really have a good gauge of like over time what has been high priority. So I would just say this is something I think you should do from my perspective, but a must relative to probably some other priorities.
Okay. So we'll put it for a should for now. And by the way, this came up yesterday. Just because something is a must, like we're not going to go and assign work to anybody. This is just your reads on things. So we're not going to go, and if Jim Angel has to is involved in something for docs, we're not going to go and say, hey Jim, you need to do this. So this is more about, like, generally speaking, we really should make this change to make the process better. So before we get too far into that, no one's assigning work. Do we have any other comments about the items that we've just covered? Okay, if not, we can move on to the revisiting the criteria and process for alpha, beta, and GA. So Miroslav had some comments.
Yes, welcome everyone. So I'm Miroslav. I'm Enhanced Shadow. and I've joined very recently, and this is my first release cycle I've been involved in. Yeah, so when it comes, yeah, I mentioned, or I listed a few definitions I had problem with at the beginning. And to be honest, just recently, I found the definitions for those like alpha, beta stable stages. But still, and they look pretty reasonable, but I still don't think they are official yet, because what I can read, for example, is that alpha means experimental feature that does not require documentation, while tests are nice to have. So this is good description of alpha, but based on what I was told, unit tests are required for now for all enhancements to be part of the release. So basically the definitions are good, but I'm still not sure if they are binding and official for that release.
Okay.
And yep.
Would you consider a must or a should to resolve this?
Should, I would say should.
Should. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
I
there,
interrupted you. If you had more to say.
yeah, and there are also those other terms like relates to stage statuses. There are stage statuses like graduating, and the other one is, I think, for example, major change. I still don't know the difference actually, and actually I still don't know whether they are important and what is the reason they are there in the tracking sheet.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Jeremy also had a comment on this one.
Yep. I have pretty much the same comments. I think it's, so I did enhancements a couple times, and I feel like every time we got to alpha and sometimes beta issues, it was kind of up to us to determine whether things met the criteria or not. You know, we would debate like, is that enough testing, or is that not enough testing? Is that a good enough set of docs or not? So it's kind of subjective. I think that it could be a little more crisply defined. Kind of touching on what Miroslav said, is it required to only have unit testing, or are the testing things we're talking about like end-to-end conformance tests, things like that? I think it would be good to to clarify that and define it a little bit more. And then again, like with the statuses, I think it's kind of up to the enhancements team to determine what they track, especially along the major change thing. I think we tend to track the major change things. So like if something's going to stay in beta, but there's going to be a major change to the API, we generally track that. But again, it's, I think in terms of the enhancements process and like the handbook for the team, we could probably clarify that a little bit more. So there's probably like a bit of clarification that can happen for the enhancements process itself, like what's the actual graduation criteria, but also some more refinement to the handbook about like what things we should actually track or not care about. Part of the like underarching problem I have with the enhancement process now is that it's up, you know, people open an issue, they come and go, and it's hard for people to, if you're not the original author of that, or you don't have commit access, the right access to the repo, you can't go and change the metadata that's at the front of the issue. So then that stuff kind of gets dropped into comments. It's up to the enhancements team to kind of scroll through those things and reconcile, like, is this going to beta, or is this going to stay in beta, or is this going to graduate to stable? And it's very manual, that process. And I think that doesn't help the fact that it's kind of vague in some cases. It's just like a compounding factor that goes up.
So would you say this is a should or a must to fix?
I think it's a should, maybe like a weak must, strong should.
Yeah.
So
You
I
could
just
also
want to
consider work and play.
Yeah,
sorry.
Anna.
I just want to add on, because I was also in an enhancement shadow a few releases ago with Jeremy. But just hearing both of you talk about it, I think it kind of becomes a must, because I remember we had to go back and forth a lot to the enhancement, to the people who made the enhancement PR request, and we had to go back and forth saying that, oh, this does not meet this criteria and you need to have this for beta or alpha or stable. And I just don't think it's very clear, and that kind of ruins the whole like purpose of people contributing and adding a feature to Kubernetes, in my opinion. So maybe it is a must and it needs to be clarified a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a good ad.
I'm gonna flag something too. There's an enhancements meeting that is to be scheduled soon. So Bob and I were talking about it yesterday. And so perhaps as we go through the list of the items, we also, like, to get through some of them faster right now, we can flag those items as what we should discuss in the enhancements meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So then we put them in that channel. So, but I would think that this one we can flag as one of those. What I'll do is I'll highlight it in yellow, and then I'll just signal to myself afterwards. We can collect all of it into a place, and then try to get that on that agenda for that next enhancements meeting. All right, we'll move on to the next one, which is we're going to have a few enhancements topics because of the sorting. But the next one is the considerations about enhancements tracking. And Jeremy has this X'd. So what were your thoughts there?
I think I talked about it a little bit before, but 1 second. When I read this, I thought, like when we do the process, it's somewhat confusing, I think, because we have this enhancements, just in general, I think that we have this sheet, this Google Docs thing, and it's got a set of data in it. And we generally identify people that are like the responsible party for that issue. And those change over time. Like for example, on the Windows stuff, Patrick left Microsoft and is not working on Kubernetes things anymore, but he was probably identified as the main Windows person for all of the KEPs that were associated with like Windows changes. And there's not necessarily a good process right now for identifying who the person that takes that over is. So when the enhancements team goes in and they're like soliciting things that are going to be in the release, we're just commenting on issues and we say, hey, is this going to be included or not? And I think there's a couple of areas of confusion that come in. One, like we might be pinging the wrong person and we don't get a good response because of that. Two, the people that do open those issues and those KEPs, like we're deferring to them to determine if that should be in the release or not. And I don't think we always get the buy-in from the associated SIG. Like the PR, the KEP may have been merged, but they don't necessarily vet that like they're going to have bandwidth to review all the PRs that are associated with it. A good example is the sidecars KEP. That went for like several releases where like, oh yeah, we're going to include this. And, it's up to Joseph. I think it was Joseph is the author of that KEP. Like we're pinging him and he would say, yes, I think this is going to make it into this release. I have a PR open, just waiting for API reviews or waiting for X reviews. But like at the end of the day, it was really not really approved by the appropriate SIGs. Like the KEP was merged, probably shouldn't have been merged at that point, but it was merged. And then the PR was open and it like he did a hero's work of keeping that thing rebased from release to release to release, because it was like 116, 117, 118 that it would be included in the release and then it wouldn't get past the final code reviews, so it wouldn't hit code freeze. I think that process is just could be clarified. Like, what's the real way of including something in the? What's a better way of including something in the release?
Okay, would that be a must or a should in your mind?
I think that's a must.
Okay, and if anybody else agrees, feel free, put a must or a should next to that item.
I think that's kind of so. Bob had an idea for like what a ticketing system might look like for something getting included in the release, and that would be more like you have to open a PR. And like a ticket gets created inside of a directory. And I think that it would, be a little bit more explicit that something's going to be included, because it would have to be approved by like that owning SIG.
Okay, Anna's also marked that this is a must, and Kendall too. So we're drawing some important context clarification. So we are about a third through the hour, so I just want to call out time. We can move on to the next item, which is another enhancements item, unless anybody has any more comments that they really want to share at this time.
I was just
Right.
gonna say, I think the enhancement tracking will also be a benefit from like a comms perspective as well. Just because when we're reaching out about like feature blogs and things like that, I think there's some, there's not always clarity around what features are actually going to be in that release. And so I think if we could clarify that process, it would be a bit easier from our perspective to know who to reach out to and what to expect in terms of the blogs that are going to be put out, and the things that we need to communicate to the CNCF. So I think that would be.
Yeah, great points. What to communicate to the CNCF. Awesome. All right, moving to the separating proposals and architecture related items from community. This is a should. Do you want to say real quickly what you would like to have here?
Yeah, there's a we legacy wise we kind of have design proposals, and that was what predated KEPs. People still update those things, and they shouldn't. They should just kind of go away or move somewhere else, so it's very clear that it's not.
Yeah, that came up yesterday too, so we're getting some consensus around that. All right, if we want to move to the next item, the PRR questionnaire. So this is done already, as Miroslav points out.
Yep.
Is there any required follow-up though, like making it stick or a next step?
I think that we discussed this briefly in one of the SIG architecture meetings, but I think that as we add this stuff and we start building out like KEPCTL and add more stuff to KEPVal, I think we can enforce this a little bit more and make it a little bit more checkable. Like, part of the thing with like the inclusion in the release for the enhancements is that it's up to us to go and make sure, like us, the enhancements team, to go and make sure that all of the things are required. And sometimes humans are humans, and sometimes you miss those things. I think if we have the ability to automate some of those checks a little bit more, then it's easier on the enhancements team.
Yeah. Okay. The next item, the tracking sheet itself. And Jeremy's, we've covered many of these points, but do you want to call it anything else? It's kind of like a summary.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sheet has kind of organically grown, and like as the team goes through each cycle, there's like an incremental improvements made, including some automation in the sheet, which is pretty awesome. But I think spreadsheets aren't the best tool for that job. I think as we refine what enhancements look like, we've gone to like having more metadata and things are more like checkable and validatable. I think that it would be good to use something like this KEPCTL tool that we kind of have started on. But I think it's really, really important that we treat it like a real project, and we have a good roadmap for what it's going to look like, so that we can A, make sure we're making progress, but B, we can solicit contributors and make sure that it's not just like Jeremy, Bob show making the tool.
Yeah. Well, we're on our way with that already, I guess.
Yeah.
So would you say must or should?
I think that's a must.
All right. And Kendall and Miroslav also has access. Kendall, you want to go?
I don't have anything to add. I think that he nailed it.
Okay. Would you give a must or a should read to it?
Yeah, I'll adopt the must. I think that was well.
All right. And Miroslav, what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree actually to Jeremy. What I can only add, like this tracking sheet is very powerful, but also very cumbersome to work with. And I really liked the remark from let me check, Nabarun.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned about some automation tool that is going to replace the tracking sheet. So I really like that idea.
Yeah, that's cat control. Cat, or is it cat CTL? How do we say it?
We have to come up with the canonical naming.
Yeah,
Cat cuddle.
cat cool. All right, moving on to the next item, unless anybody has objections. We have an X from Anna on the targeting features, issues, and PRs to release milestones documentation. Anna, what do you want to see happening there?
I think mostly when I was in enhancement shadow, I think I ran into a lot of issues where people didn't understand like how to enter features into a milestone, I think. I know the milestone label specifically is managed by the release team, but I've seen a lot of people actually remove it themselves or add it themselves, which is, I think, is a problem in my opinion. And I think specifically that is what concerns me.
Okay.
I'm not sure if anyone else agrees with that.
Yeah, I mean, there are more people than just the release team that are in that milestone maintainers team, and like people from the leads of the SIGs do it sometimes. I think it's okay if they do that as long as we have an understanding, we're communicating with them actively. I don't think that always happens. I think just, given human nature, people do things and they don't always communicate what they're doing.
Yes, that is definitely true. So Anna, would you call this a must or should that we should prioritize?
I say it's a should. It's just more like making people more aware of that documentation that's already out there. So it's like not a must.
Okay, making people more aware. And Jeremy, since you commented on it, would you say must or should?
Should.
All right. All right, moving to the next item, the release phases page. Kendall has a thought on this. Kendall, do you have an action item or recommendation for this?
Yeah, sorry, I can't tell where we are. I'm having trouble reading the screen.
Oh, okay. I'm on
yeah.
release
So
phases page.
this one, I just think like in general, as a shadow that came in on the comp side, like it's not as involved in the actual ongoing, I guess, phases of the project. And so I think having more clarity around some of the things that we're talking about in all of these meetings that I'm sitting in that maybe are like a bit mystical to me. I'm like, okay, what are we talking about here? What does this mean? And so I think that this is really, really important just from making sure that it's clear for everyone that's part of the release team, and especially making it easier for shadows in different areas to be able to understand kind of the, I guess, project management aspects that we're going to be going through and why we're doing those. So like if we're sitting in a burn down meeting, like help me understand exactly how this is different from the meetings we were having before, or how this might change as the project progresses. So that was just kind of from my perspective, more of like the, hey, I'm a shadow and I would love for this to be a little bit more clear. So
yeah. Would you say must or should?
Probably should.
Okay. All right, so we are halfway at the hour. So we have 3 options. We can keep going at this pace and schedule a second session. We can keep going at this pace and just run out of time. I guess we have 4 options. We can also go faster and just try to run through all of the things. Or we could just have everyone highlight comments that they really want to point out. So like we can continue going down the list, but say like, oh, I want to speak up on this, on my comment. I want to make sure that I draw attention to it, or I have a question about it. So I can't see you, but who wants to have the second session? Can you put your comments there in the chat? Okay, who wants to call out the comments that they really feel strongly about and then finish on time? Okay, Jeremy's good with a second meeting next week. Gianluca wants a second. Cool. Who really wants to like just wrap up today and call out their comments? Okay, second session. Marissa, all right. I guess we have a quorum. We have a majority. Okay. All right. Second session it is. And I'm going to nominate Jeremy to be our Zoomer. So we can just kind of wrap that up, and then we can just keep this group. I'll just send the invite specifically to this group. We'll have to agree on the day and the time, but we'll keep the continuity. All right, back to the items. So I guess the next one again is from Kendall. So this item was the Kubernetes release team. It's kind of, we can combine with the role handbooks, but it's the overview. So
yeah,
I think
it's just a should. I don't think there's a lot to add there other than I think clarity of documentation around the release team is important, you know.
Okay. All right. Yeah, hearing a lot of that request as we do these sessions. All right, the next item is refine the existing KEP documentation. Miroslav.
Yeah, I think we covered most of the things from my point of view, at least, that are here mentioned in that item when we discussed the item number 7. So it's about like glossary of terms, so definitions of terms, and also like entry and exit criteria. What does it mean that enhancement has to have tests? Yeah, it's as it was already mentioned, it's very subjective. So just to clarify those things.
Got it. Just while we're on this, like real briefly, because I think we'll have more to say in the enhancements meeting, but we have all of these sub-project board items. I mean, do we have a regular cadence for when those are sorted through and updated and looked at?
I don't think they're,
yeah.
Right? So I think that was kind of under the purview of SIG PM, and I don't think there was regular meetings for that. And then I think it just kind of became an ad hoc, you know, the enhancements lead would talk to Stephen, other SIG release people, suggest changes, and like it would iteratively kind of happen. I think, and then like the PRR stuff being added, I think has been kind of driven by SIG architecture as they're looking for things. I don't think it's been like a ongoing refinement.
Okay. Because I know there's I think there's an item in the board specifically for the project board itself, and that could be something we would look into is regularly scheduling some review of it.
Yeah, I think you know, we need to schedule. We need to start scheduling the enhancements meetings. I have an action item to make a doodle for that. I just haven't done it yet because of the world.
Yeah,
I'll try to do that today. But I think it's important for us to start having those just to get a better handle on the process. Keep it healthy.
And plus we have our new product manager friends that have joined the effort in the last couple of weeks, and it would be great to synchronize with them and get them involved. All right. So I'm just going down. We have a little empty space, and then now, yeah, this one was a hot. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any X's. I don't think I did. Nope. Okay. The making the KEPs transparent. Anna and Miroslav, what would you like to have happen?
So I was involved in, well, not involved, but I saw the KEP changes from the enhancement shadow when I was a shadow for it, but it just seemed, so from the issue I read, and it just seemed like a good idea to me to actually implement this. I don't have any more comments other than I know KEPs are not very at least in my opinion, are not very transparent or easy. So I think just having some process there would be really helpful to not just the release team, but for other people as well.
Others. Would you say a must or a should that we should look into this?
So I'm not sure. I probably should because I don't know too much about it, but other people who are more familiar with CAPS might have a different opinion.
Okay. Miroslav, what do you think?
I think that from my point of view, it all boils down to some automation tool, again, that will be able to answer some questions about how many current active enhancement proposals we have, what is the status, and currently I don't find easy way to find that information.
Yeah, I think that's a +1 for me too. John commented on my my CapCTL work in progress PR that he had taken the branch and built a query command on top of it. I think that I think we have a lot of opportunity to build supporting stuff around it. I mean, you think, oh, it's just some markdown and some YAML. Like, why do you need tooling around it? But the workflow around this, I think, is complex enough that, and it's touched by so many people that I think it does need some workflow. But also for people coming from the community, it's not super easy to like click around in GitHub and say like, oh, maybe this thing's under SIG architecture, or maybe this thing's under SIG node. Like, who's the correct, especially if you're not really involved in the project, you might not know who the proper SIG to own it is, and that's where the enhancements live once their KEP gets merged.
So
I think having some of that, we've also talked about having like a KEP website where you could go and query and like search around and stuff. I think that would be like a great step in making them a little bit more transparent and discoverable.
So for the both of you, what would you say, must or should?
I think it should.
Okay.
Should.
Okay. All right, I'll just change this. I don't know. I hate when that happens. Empty space. Wow. All right, we're at 70. We might finish. So we have on responsiveness, we don't really have a process for when an item has been around for multiple releases, let's either close or not. Should there be one? Anna.
So I don't know how to handle this, but I know there's a lot of issues and PR that's out there. And when we ping them about just anything, enhancement, bug, or like any docs or anything like that, we don't really get response from those people. And the thing is, when we do have a bot that removes that labels it as a stale, but a lot of people just go there and remove the stale, and then nothing happens afterwards. So I'm just concerned that a lot of people are wasting their time as part of the release team pinging these people when there's no activities.
Yeah, exactly. When there's no activity. And this is getting into the PR velocity topic as well that I've been looking into for the last couple of months, just kind of in a variety of ways. But it's just, it adds a human tax to that effort. That's especially for like the release team, you're trying to get the release out and you don't need that tax. So what could be a reliable way to actually close items that's accurate, that's reflective of reality and what people's intentions are? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
did you say this is a must or should? Sorry, just get Anna.
So I've been a shadow for like 3 releases and I really think it's a must. because it's wasting a lot of people's time, in my opinion.
Yeah. I wonder if there's even a way to measure that time somehow to really bring it real, make it real for people. But I think it's probably just a very well-established gut feeling based on experience that's over time gets honed by experience. Was that Miroslav that wanted to speak? Sorry.
No, I
Nope.
have nothing to add.
Okay. Kendall, you also had things to say.
Yeah, I think Anna knows well and has covered it and probably has even seen it more tangibly. But I think I was thinking a lot from like a burn down perspective and just when you think about the fact that that's convoluting and creating like technical debt that you carry forward when you just have a bunch of stale things that aren't really relevant anymore. So yeah, I think she nailed it, and I think it's definitely a must.
All right. And feel free if I missed something, because I tried to get with the whole point, but maybe I missed it. It's a little late in the day, in the week. All right, we'll move down. Okay, we got another X from Kendall on the release calendar.
Yeah, so I think especially with this release, with just the way that we shifted the timeline, and this being the first one that I was a part of, I think being really clear and having it documented just so that we understand the cadence that things are expected by. I think when the timeline is shifting, having a source of truth for that is really important, just so that not only we're aware, but so are end users. And so yeah, I think that's a should for sure. I don't think it's a must, but it's a should.
Cool. All right. Okay, we have the release retrospective action items from 116 and 117, and it's on both of those.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm a big believer of retros, and if there are action items from retros, like I think that needs to be actioned upon so that our release cycle becomes better, like for the next release. But having a lot of action items left over from 2 releases ago doesn't seem right to me, in my opinion. So just any action items for any retros should be taken care of as soon as possible, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think part of the issue with that is that people get assigned action items and then they may or may not be on the next release team. And if they're not on the next release team, it obviously bumps way down in their priority list and they forget about it and just kind of go stale. I think figuring out how to fix that, encourage people to, or identifying somebody else like from the incoming release team that could handle that, I think would be better.
So I'm assuming your comment also applies to the 117 items?
Yes.
Okay. And then would you call this a must or a should?
I think it's a must.
Okay.
I would definitely also, I'm going to add shoulds. I think it's a should. I think that's a really good point. And that, so I'll add shoulds on my column.
Sounds good. Jeremy, you had some things. What would you like to say? Must or should?
Should. I'm more of a must, I think.
Okay. So this relates to something that Stephen mentioned last Friday, having asynchronous release teams and not just being by time zone, but also being this continuity. Like we might still have a release team satellite, or how do we make this work flow so that it actually gets done after a release? Where do we put it so that we know that it goes forward? And
yeah, I don't have an answer for that, but I think that it's something that we should figure out.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a interesting like discussion topic, or like a action brainstorm toward action.
Yeah.
I bet we could have a lot of good process ideas that would start from that conversation and then kind of filter out and maybe affect some of these other items that we talk about. Let's see. Here we go. Create tooling to generate and manage KIPs. This is from Anna.
Just reading the issue, it sounded pretty cool and useful. I don't have any other comments other than that. And I would say it should instead of must.
Okay. And you've probably noticed as we've talked, there's a lot of kind of somewhat related items. So one thing that might help us is if we figure out how to consolidate some of these things. And I guess that's it. So we don't need another session. We didn't hear from Gianluca or Hassan so much.
Yeah, I mean, I shadowed a couple of times bug triage, and now I lead bug triage, but I'm very like tied to bug triage. So for me, it was I was happy to listen to have the opportunity to see other like face of the coin. This like, but yeah, I think I don't have anything to add more than what I heard, and nothing like treat my attention, or I think it's reasonable, and yeah, I may come back to you if something gets to my mind, but for now
For me as well, it is my first shadow and mainly focusing with the CI signal. So I give my feedback on the CI/CD signal for now.
So if anything that the participant said inspires you to have a thought and want to endorse another item that's outside of your domain, you're highly encouraged to do so, because everything is interwoven in the end anyway. So as far as next steps, so we could use the remaining time to sort out some action items that sounded like they appeared over the conversation, those being the enhancements meeting and when we might do that. So we could actually talk a little bit about just the structure and the content of the meeting if you feel comfortable doing so. And then the other topic might be actually how do we maybe look at this asynchronous release team topic? Like if you wanted a second session, but we finished this job, we could actually still do it the second session, but talk about that. And the idea could be that we would just propose some ideas. We could actually open it up to the rest of the release team and then have some ideas about how to handle this topic so that we can actually close out retro items, ensure that work gets done. I see a lot of potential benefits from a conversation about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to be involved in that, but I think we should open it up to other people.
So we can make that a
I
general
think
release team discussion topic.
one of the feedback I'm happy to leave here is that as more as we can move away from Slack to something that looks more like an issue request based, usually the asynchronous workflow starts to work better. But like this is more experience that I think I have in general, and we may apply to this context as well. So if the action item becomes like issues that get assigned to maybe two people, one from the previous SIG release and one from the next one, we may be able to build a loop.
Okay. So what I can do is I can share the 2 action items in the release team channel, and then anyone from the team who wants to join either the enhancements meeting or well, Jeremy will take care of the enhancements meeting, but I can drive this one forward, the asynchronous team topic, and then we can probably do that next week. I'm wondering if we actually would go through the items here, like if we can think about what might be a quick win. So if we would take any of these items that we've talked about do we have a sense of what anything is this like a low-hanging fruit, easy to do?
When we discussed about the state issues, something that like usually I look at the number of issues that are open to see, the work that I have ahead of me, and probably we should probably think about the idea to actually have issue closed and not just mark as stale from the bot, because it gives you two different signal, so maybe if the interaction between an issue and is like stale remove from like 5 times, it gets closed or whatever.
Okay.
I think
So
it
tightening
can
up.
be an issue.
So tightening up what Anna was saying, like basically like making it stricter and more consistent around like closing those stale items.
Yeah.
Kind of pushing
Yeah,
items
because
close.
Yeah, because I think it gives you, if you see the issue open, it gives you a different feedback than if you see the issue closed. So maybe if you can identify how many times an issue get just reopened without any interaction, and we can just close it. So I think it will get harder for somebody to reopen an issue other than removing a label.
And to keep it going. So do you think that would actually be rather easy to solve? I mean, that was the question, like what's a quick win?
Yeah, I think it's a change on the automation that that looks feasible. So if the consequence by it is the right one, I think it shouldn't be too hard. I don't know if the consequence will be enough, or people will just don't care and reopen as they just do with the label.
I think it looks easy from technical point of view, but I'm just wondering how many people we need to convince.
That's why I'm saying it will be. It sounds easy to do like in the automation, but I don't know if the consequence will be the one we are looking for.
Gianluca, do you have a read just while we're here? Must or should? Like, would you throw your hand?
It's more like a possible action item, but it can be a should. So yeah, should.
Okay, you'd put it as a should. Okay. So what about any quick wins? Do we think that anything that we've talked about, or if we look at the sheet and we saw something, does anything seem like low effort, high impact?
I could go for also the CI signal status report.
Okay.
I believe it was on top.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is, again, agreeing on a template, and even if we would manually have to do it now and later on it can be automated, there is some effort already around having this automated. I believe this can bring a value, and it doesn't require the huge effort. It's just like agreeing moving forward on a format for this report. I see this doable from the items that we discussed from CI signal.
Okay. Anyone else identify quick wins? There's a church nearby. I think these bells go on for a little while. So did anybody say anything surprising? Like, what do you all think about each other's comments? Did you find anything that has been, learn about anything that has been like, that you've wondered about, or did you have any surprises?
I think it was just good to to hear other people's perspectives, because like I said, there's still a lot that I sit on the release calls and I'm like, I have no idea what 70% of people are saying. So I think it was just useful to kind of hear a little bit of context about some of the other groups. So in general, it was educational for me, but there's still a lot that I have to learn. So yeah, nothing was shocking at all. It sounded very logical and provided good context.
What about anyone else?
Yeah, I will second Kenan this as well. I believe the common theme for me is the complexity is start to increase, and lots of bits and pieces in here and in there. So if it will take you a lot of time to be able to trace something end to end across different SIGs, across different document, different repos, and so on. So one of the things that I struggled with when I started with the CI signal is to be able to trace the jobs together, reaching out to the right SIG and so on and so forth. I believe like, again, I was, and this is my thoughts as well. I was even thinking about some sort of a mind map to help me know where to start and where the things are connected, because it started to getting complicated. Even the stuff that we are talking about it now, that appears for other people to be very simple because we have done it multiple times. For anyone that is joining any or any shadows that are joining newly, you will be able to grasp quickly within the SIG that you are allocated to easily. So you will spend some time, but you will be able to at least master it. However, the ecosystem around will still be way more complicated to absorb in one release cycle. So I believe most of the team has done multiple release shadows on multiple roles. That's why they start getting a proper understanding for the overall ecosystem, but it takes time. And I believe something that is needed to be done is how we can streamline, how we can simplify the onboarding and the process for people to understand and to correlate. This is something that I had in my mind since I joined. I'm trying to get bits and pieces in there and here to be able to at least see what can be done to streamline this and to facilitate it even for others moving forward. But this is my thoughts, just speaking out loud.
Your thoughts are echoed by others through these sessions. So I'm not sure that you had actually pointed out onboarding in your comments, Hassam. So you might just want to make a note on that for an item that you think most clearly aligns with your idea. And it might be some of the documentation items. So what we'll do next, so I will reach out about the session that, about the asynchronous teams on the release channel. Jeremy will have the doodle out for the enhancements discussion. And then we have hopefully 2 more sessions that will happen next week. And then once everybody has participated that wants to, we'll start summarizing the information, and then you'll hear the next step. But basically it will be, we'll try to frame a backlog of priorities based on your feedback, and then hopefully start tackling these items and strategizing around getting them done, because some are more ambitious than others. So thank you for your time and your feedback and your participation. This was really great and fun for me, so I hope it was for you too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you all.
Yes.